Hello. So today, well, first of all, I'd like to invite you yes, to take a deep breath and to join us in the Energy membership on Patreon. The link is in the description below. And right now it's a small group, but mighty, incredible. And the connection is quality. And things are switching up for September. Instead of tiers, I'm doing one tier. And we're going to have 3 optionally live calls. And I'd love for you to be there. They'll also be recorded if that's more your style. But a new friend that I've met in this energy community through the YouTube platform, I got a message this morning, and I love the honesty of it. Honesty, radical, deep honesty with ourselves, first and foremost, that we can then share when we so choose. That takes us far. That also, what I'm hearing is it slices through the bounds of time and space. And it creates momentum for quantum leaping, for accessing other timelines, for, kickstarting new eras of life. And it doesn't necessarily matter what the outside looks like as you're doing that radical honesty with yourself. We can get caught up judging what the material world looks like around us, thinking we're not doing enough, that it's not effective, but the momentum builds. And so practicing this radical honesty with self is number 1, really. And it contributes to all of the ways that all of the things, the areas of life that we care about. Sometimes it can seemingly impact negatively because it can be repulsive to those that don't want to join us at that level. It can seem crazy to people who are like, I didn't want to be exposed to that power of that authenticity. It's pretty uncommon still on Earth. And yet it is picking up momentum because there are people doing it. And it contributes to, for me in my life, parenting, contributes to the quality of self-care, and to my own definition of self-care and the quality there. And among many other things, but that quality of self-care was reminding me of the message from this new friend, this energy community member who is in a place on Earth where there is active physical war going on. And that is a big deal energetically. And it was really my inner child that stepped forward to answer. And I noticed that she really related to the energy coming through the message. This is sage burning, by the way. White sage. Which feels like it's clearing illusions and delusions that we have about this subject of war, perhaps. Because the inner child in me really felt like a relatedness, but I've never lived anywhere where there's a physical, political war going on. Although it does feel true that all of the world right now is involved in a very psychological, spiritual, emotional, intellectual war. A war on every level. And I guess that is... So my inner child, myself as a child, would lay in bed and worry about war. And I would tell my mom, and she would say things like, oh, don't worry, that's not going to happen here. Oh, don't worry, that war is all the way across the world. And, you know, I sort of learned to relate to this concept because I was also really worried about natural disasters. And my mom would present me with the information of like, that doesn't really happen here, or like, you know, the nearest volcano is this far away. But so there's this separation, this reliance on separation for safety that kept coming into play in soothing the active fear, the active concern that would keep me up at night. And you know, the response was like focused on my safety. But in retrospect, I'm not sure that's where the concern was really coming from. Because in our feeling and sensing capacities, we can feel things that are happening across the globe, and we inherently care about all of the living things there because we are inherently one throbbing energy being. So it's kind of like, you know, getting impaled in your foot or your leg, but your head being like, oh, no problem, that's kind of far away. And just not attending to it. It becomes problematic. And so, really sending energy to myself back then in childhood and to all of the reflections through you, through time and space, through iterations of the bypassing that was occurring then and the conditioning of bypassing. That is rampant in our world. Attending to the anger that builds up in the system as we gaslight each other and ourselves in that bypassing, in that reiteration of separation that a huge part of us knows is just not the case, that wants to be in the active connection that we are always in and wants to honor it consciously, energetically. We are in this together, all of our parts and all of the people. But it doesn't always look like that. And a lot of people are holding their minds, their perspective, their consciousness in ways, at levels that defy, dismiss, dissociate, dissolve the power of our togetherness. really distorting life on earth. And that is war within the self. And that perpetuates war externally. And so when participating in that version of bypassing, which I have done a lot this life, trained by my parents who had the best of intentions, but who still I do not see have let their consciousness grow or expand, to include this radical perspective, radical being far-reaching and thorough. And it's very difficult to hold far-reaching radical perspectives, thoroughly presencing with the depth and width of our capacity when there's war inside the self. And so perhaps if anyone can relate to laying in bed worrying about war, or just trying to get through all this stress feels really real, touching into the places inside oneself that are alive with concern because the proximity is internal. And that is a unifying factor among us as people, because the intense majority of us are experiencing internal conflict. Oh. So as a kid, I was reflecting on this after this exchange. This text exchange this morning, where this person really bravely admitted doesn't feel, it feels accurate, but also like acknowledged. Admitted feels like it's slipping through a small crack, but acknowledged feels like it's really taking up space. And I feel like that's what honesty does. And so maybe at first to let it come through, to choose it, felt like that admitting, felt like it was slipping kind of under a doorway or something, because the training in our world is to keep that door closed, make excuses, come up with something to say that makes you seem good. We're acknowledging the really active parts of yourself, even if it is a lot easier to associate with being bad or lazy or any other words that connote a lot of judgment or criticism in our world that's trained us to be good, appropriate. We've been distorted to believe that good and appropriate equate to integrity. Integrity is extremely deep and extremely wide work. Sending out celebration to every time you've been able to choose that for yourself, and every time you're choosing it throughout your timelines. Meeting all of those versions of yourself here in the now. And letting that stretch your sense of presence all through your field. Unifying the good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the accurate, the inaccurate, the mostly unnameable stuff. That at the center of it all is all the same. But in the glory of our perceiving minds, gets defined differently, causing a dissonance in the system that can and is being rectified, the all parts united in a depth and width of integrity, of honesty within the self. And so, reflecting on my childhood self, I can see that the worry wasn't just about, the conflicts, the war that we read in the paper in different parts of the world. It was like focusing on that in the response of my parent was an evasion of the war inside herself and the war between my parents that were both every day, pretty much all day occurrences, the tension, the conflict, and the combat, the aggressive or passive aggressive actions to overpower parts, overpowering inside the self, and that reflecting externally within intimacies. It wasn't a custom of culture, to be honest about that, and that is coming into being now, and it is potent, profound, and truly playful when you get into the essence of it. And it's very satisfying for the parts to come back into play with each other, and it liberates our inner children and eliminates war within and without. And some versions of evidence of this will be immediately visible, and others you're contributing to a long-term big picture momentum that doesn't go unnoticed by the whole. It will be recognized and rewarded in your soul's journey. Every effort you make of being honest and allowing the coming together and playfulness between parts, the respect, And respect can only really occur in that depth and width of honesty and integrity. Shaking up tension stored in the tissues from bracing lifetimes or decades or however long of bracing in a conditioned betrayal of the process that we're talking about in order to be good and appropriate, honored and respected, seemingly obeying authorities that trained us. Methods of being that involved a lot of bypassing, full acknowledgement of inner conflict, conditioned us to believe that we solve outer conflict by involving ourselves in more of it. Letting the bliss of the inner child, feeling this recognition rise within you, ripple through, because they always, always, always knew. Because this is natural to us, this awareness, this acknowledgement. It's the innocence of our essence that is our birthright, that is our inherent intelligence. Letting that fill you now as the best protection and protective contribution from a state of fullness. Emanating that permission. Fullness being presence, a graceful, gentle presence, having acknowledged the inner conflicts. That equates to an openness of the system where energy can pass through. There isn't conflict or grinding or resistance for the energy to pass through. It's clear. And the flow is smooth within and without. And so resources are shared in simplicity and success between your parts and between the people, among the people. Every moment that you spend in this state is a very significant contribution. So thank you. From every iteration of myself, I thank you. Just stroking the arms, just reminding the nervous system how natural this is and how safe and secure, and zipping your energy field up in that security and safety of this expression. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All my love. I'll see you soon.
If you're interested in learning Kundalini Gold Reiki Mastery with me this fall, find the link in the description. I'd love to have you if these videos have been resonating, if you would like to use energy as a companion to open yourself, your life, to living beyond the constraints of the narcissistic conditioning, using your feeling and sensing skills to